everyone. Happy Friday, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Lue Reviews, your destination for critical thinking in the realm of the unexplained. It can get confusing out there in the paranormal. We're here to straighten stuff out for you, just in case you get lost in that rabbit hole. Please don't forget to subscribe, share the show. But save those likes for halfway through. Don't worry, I'll remind you. The algorithm enjoys the likes in the middle of the show. And ring that bell, that way you're notified anytime we release content, including our Popcats, which I am genuinely getting a kick out of editing. Today's Popcats episode was fucking adorable. So go check them out. Okay, so what are we going to be talking about today, guys? Well, today we're going to examine Curt Jaimungal's interview with Lue Elizondo. What was said? What did we learn? Anything new? Did it feel like Curt was walking on eggshells like a lot of interviewers do when it comes to Lue Elizondo? We're going to go over a lot of it. It's going to be a bulk of today's show. And we'll talk about some other stuff as well. Before we do, though, I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. Chat's been pretty fiery from the start. You guys are hilarious and a little aggressive sometimes. Yeah, it's like everybody wants to jump on Curt, but we'll get into it. We will get into it. Let's switch to our good old Lue reviews. Want to say hello to everyone though. Pinzer Lou, who's in the chat, who's a member. Thank you for being here. Andreas, what's shaking, man? Always good to see you in the chat. Complizier, member, the ultimate donator to the channel. So if you want a question answered, has to be answered. Super Chat's a great way. You can make donations to the show through Super Chats or become a member like these fine members highlighted in green. And yeah. Let's do it. Let's freaking do this, man. Oh man, there's my sound stripe. All right. So to start off this show, I thought the best thing to do was read this post by Kelly Chase, who is a UFO underscore rabbit hole or UFO underscore rabbit underscore hole. This is someone who blocked me before we ever interacted, primarily because she was getting info from all the people that I've warned you about and all the people who've been exposed now today for the most part. Hate to say it, but Lou was right. This Lou. And this was just perfect because I know there's intelligent people out there that are lost in this rabbit hole, just like I was. It's very, very easy to slip. I don't care how smart you are. It's incredibly easy to slip into subcultures that can harm you. It's easy to slip into religions that can harm you, and it's easy to slip into cults that can harm you. And you could be brilliant and still fall for these things. Still be, vulnerable to believing, especially when you dissect it, really stupid shit. And so Kelly Chase has a very popular podcast. She's been promoted by all of the usual suspects that I'm sure warned her about me and told her to block me. Just go ahead and do it right now. Because 2 years ago, I was saying exactly this, but screaming it at the top of my lungs, because unlike Kelly Chase, I spoke to all of these guys multiple times. I worked with these guys on certain levels, on certain projects, so I have a relationship with these folks. This is someone who's got that Heisman arm's length sort of, you know, she knows folks who knows folks, and she's had some great interviews and great people on the show. Great people. Same great people I had on my show. But this is what she writes, and this was just, 2 days ago? And she writes, "It's hard not to notice how much people feel the need to hedge and apologize in advance just for daring to point out that the history of OSAP and ATIP has never been less coherent. And that might actually present a problem. That shouldn't be controversial. That's just an objective statement of the situation as it stands. We await more information. When a movement, especially one whose goal is transparency, starts to believe that there are certain truths you can't tell in the name of protecting the cause, you've lost the plot. We need to toughen up." And to that, I say, bravo. Welcome to the party, pal. Welcome to the party. Now imagine that feeling coupled with manipulation, coupled with blackmail, coupled with the destruction of your business. Because I can tell you this right now, this statement, I promise you, did not win her any subscriptions, did not win her any new Patreon members, did not win her any new fans. And I'm sure she is getting a ration of shit for this. There's no doubt in my mind. Ufology, you need to toughen up. You need to. Jesus Christ. You guys, see, this is why when did I mute this? Couldn't have been that long ago, right? Dude, this button right here on this mic, I hate these Shure mics. They, like, you touch them, I touch it like this, and you accidentally hit the mute. Like, it's so sensitive. I'm sorry, guys. Not sure where you lost me. That's wonderful. Get off your high horse and read the chat. 2 minutes or so? Okay. All right. Yeah. Anyway. So funny. Ah, gosh, I don't know what I was saying for the last 60 seconds, but I think you guys get my point. Like, it didn't win her any fucking fans, and we still just asking the question, the difference between OSAP and ATIP, like, just for simply asking that question, you're a leper. So I'm curious to see what happens to Kelly Chase here. Not that I want anything bad to happen to her, but I hope that whatever the reaction is, it makes her open her eyes even more. Because I can tell you, that's what happened to me. That's what happened to a lot of folks in this discussion. So funny. Agent Matt says also you're muted. Yeah, we got it. Oh, man. All right. So anyway, that's what you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys heard me read the statement and me go over pretty much everything that happened with Kelly here. But I think it's a great segue into this interview. Because, like she says here, every question has to be hedged with an apology just for daring to ask the question. And what's funny is we've learned here in the last couple of weeks that, well, in the last week, George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell said in their Weaponized podcast, where they addressed a couple of things, but one of them being Jay Stratton's writing a book. And I'm interested to see what that book says, especially when it comes to the history of OSAP, ATIP, and Lue Elizondo's role in it. Because, yeah, the rumors behind the scenes are it's not good for Elizondo. It's not going to be good what Stratton has to say about Elizondo. And where that $22 million went from the Pentagon, or the taxpayers, really, that went to OSAP, all of that money, all of that funding, all of the resources went to OSAP. How do we know that? Because we've got the paperwork to prove it. We've got the people who've worked there. We've got the reports from the ranch. Like, there are so many things that we can look at from the OSAP program. And the beautiful thing about that is you can see what a waste of fucking money it was. What an absolute waste of time, money, and resources that OSAP was. It did not garner one thing to give back to the American taxpayer, the Department of Defense, or the defense apparatus as a whole. It garnered nothing other than just a bunch of pissed off people going, how the hell did this happen? Shut it down right now. Whereas ATIP, it's got none of that. None of that. The best thing you have is a letter that Senator Harry Reid has been reported he did not write. He just signed, alleging that Lue Elizondo ran ATIP. Okay. So what? We need more. Way more than that. And in the book, he says he was recruited into OSAP when he does a live interview with George Knapp 2 days later after the book is released. I never said I was part of OSAP. I made that very clear in my book. No, you did not. You made it very clear that you were part of OSAP. But this is just a great quote, and I'm glad. And again, I apologize. I don't know if you guys got this part. Like my response to Kelly Chase. Like, good on you. Good on you for out loud asking the question. I'm curious to know if you've erased this tweet. I don't know. I just, because I'm blocked by you. I saw this in my feed, and I was like, I have to talk about this. Because again, like, she's in she's in the movement whose goal is transparency, and they can't question certain truths in the name of protecting the cause. You're in that cult, Kelly. I dare you to ask even more questions. See what happens. See what happens to your podcast. See what happens to your business. See what happens to your book sales. I'm pretty sure she's got a book. Just see what happens. Keep talking like that. Watch. Watch what happens to your business. And let's see how many death threats you start to get. Or how many bosses get contacted about you and what you're doing. Like, just go ahead. Keep making posts like that. And so, like, you know, when you got guys like Matt Ford come out and say shit like Stephen Greenstreet and Mick West and me and John Greenwald are part of this disinformation campaign and we get paid, we're paid disinformation agents. I'm sorry. That's anything but fucking true. But fucking true. You know what I mean? It's anything but true. Like, you make way more money and it's way easier of a lifestyle being a believer and being popular at being a believer than it is being the most popular debunker. And I'd say the most popular debunker or skeptic would be Mick West. But that guy made his millions way before he became a debunker. He doesn't debunk to make money or pay his mortgage. He does it because he's just a curious fellow. And he's really good at it. He's good at physics. He's good at mathematics. And he adds a lot of clarity to this conversation. And guess what? Those are the people that you need to toughen up against, Matt Ford. If you can't handle the facts, get the fuck out the kitchen. If you can't toughen up and answer the easiest of questions, and don't get frustrated when actual rational explanations get thrown back at you, you're making the claim. You're looking at something or you're experiencing something and you're saying out loud, I know. That's not how it works. Not even when it comes to me. Science needs just way more than that. Way more than that. And that's all we have so far. Ufology needs to toughen the F up. Stephen Greenstreet isn't your enemy. Mick West isn't your enemy. John Greenwald isn't your enemy. If it wasn't for John Greenwald, you, Matt Ford, would not have a fucking channel. You wouldn't have a channel. Because nobody would know shit about anything without John Greenwald's FOIA requests. Which, by the way, I'm announcing today, we're doing a Big Phone Home 4, but it's not going to be called the Big Phone Home 4. It's going to be called the Big FOIA Home. And we're going to advocate and call lawmakers on behalf of improving FOIA. That is the main goal. And we're also going to call lawmakers to warn them of the UAPDA and its potential for billions in wasteful, fraudulent spending. So stay tuned, because we're fucking doing that. We're doing that. The Big FOIA Home. I'm not going to put anywhere near as much effort into it as I did with the first Big Phone Home. We're going to do like maybe a 3-4 hour broadcast. We're going to call our lawmakers. We're going to talk about FOIA, how we can improve it. We're obviously going to invite John Greenwald. I haven't told anybody about this except for a handful of people today. This is something that I've been stewing on, especially since you see guys like Lester Nair. We're going to use their call lists and their tools to combat the irrational. We're going to focus on the same committees and the same lawmakers, and we're going to tell them, hey, don't waste your time, your effort, or your resources on the UAPDA. As a taxpayer, I don't want to see the 2024 equivalent of $22 million that was wasted back in 2012 on the OSAP program. In today's money, it's over $100 million. Well over $100 million. If the equivalent of 22 million was signed off today. So that's what we're going to do. Just wanted to throw that in there. So let's get into... Oh, what is that? No, I don't want that. Let's get into the interview with Lue Elizondo and Curt Jaimungal. I've got the link to this full interview in the description below. We're not going to play the whole thing. We just don't have time for that. It is interesting to note, though, that this entire conversation is 1 hour and 43 minutes long. Now, when you go to Curt Jaimungal's channel and you look at all of the Lue Elizondo interviews, let's see how long the other ones were. Let's go to his channel. Because I'm pretty sure there was a few that were well over 2 hours. Yeah, so you've got one here. This one's 1 hour. The newest one is 1 hour 43. The one before that, which was 3 years ago, was 1 hour and 20 minutes. And then he had one with Cahill, I think. This is the one with Cahill. This is actually a part 2. He's got a part 3. Yeah, so he's got a 2 hour and 45 minute conversation here with Elizondo, and that's a part 2. Then he's got Elizondo, the Wilson memo. I don't know if this one has Elizondo in it. I think this is with Curt, with an interview. The first half is with Ross Coulthart. So I'm not going to count this 3 hour and 10 minute thing. Let me just scrub it real quick, see if Elizondo's in here. I think this is all Ross. Yeah, this is all Ross Coulthart spitting nonsense for 3 hours. So we can't count that one. And then we've got a part 3. Yeah, this is the one with Sean Cahill. And this one's 3 hours long. You know, so like normally these conversations are a bit longer, although there are a couple here that were a little shorter. So I found it interesting. After a 3-year period, Elizondo only gave him 1.5 hours, you know, and they probably went over by 13 minutes. That's my guess. You know, for a guy that has helped you platform your message, and especially in the first few interviews, you know, in a really wonderful way, that helped you circulate your name. I figured for sure this was going to be this is going to be another 3-4 hour interview. And so going into it, I don't think Curt thought he was only going to get 1.5 hours. That's just my guess. And so I'm going to preface this review with, like, I saw a lot of heat for Curt in the chat before we started the show, and I don't want my I don't want my audience to be giving Curt Jaimungal shit for this interview. Number one, Curt Jaimungal is not like a Lyndall Moulton Howe or a Jeremy Corbell or a George Knapp. He is completely on the outside of this mosh pit looking in, and he just so happens to have great access because of how brilliant he is. I don't think he's, and I think he would admit this, a natural born host. Like, he is a very reserved, if you've ever spoken to him privately or even in an interview, he really thinks out his responses. To where at some points I was like, gonna talk just because it was such a long pause, and then he would give you this really articulate, wonderful answer, and he's a joy to speak with. I think, like any content creator, when they're curious and they're looking at something and they just so happen to come across a topic where they see a huge bump in numbers. And as a content creator, it's your job to see, okay, what caused that? What happened in that bump there? And what can I do to repeat that? And as a content creator, I can't blame Curt when he's looking at his channel and he goes, holy shit, man, this UFO, people are interested in this. And guess what? They are. It's in the top 3 most searched topics on the planet. Porn and UFOs. And I can't remember what 3 is. But people are curious about this. And really smart people are curious about this, especially the ones who haven't read the entire history of ufology, who don't know the players and the information they presented, when and where, and how it doesn't hold up. Because I think these kind of guys are thinking about way more important shit. Way more important stuff. So for them to dedicate 2 years of their life into looking into all of the claims, the people, the moments in ufology, whether it be from a legislative standpoint or a community standpoint. Like, you had Bill Moore at the MUFON conference saying, this is all bullshit, I'm out. Fuck all y'all. You'll never see me again. And they never did. You go to Stan Friedman's early interviews and you'll hear a lot of the talking points that I unknowingly had put into the Big Phone Home. And when I went back and watched a lot of his stuff, and it was when he passed, I went back and just started diving back into his archive, and I'm like, wow, this sounds just like the Big Phone Home. Shit, have we done this before? And I just didn't really understand at what level. And we have, not like we did in 2020, 2021. You know, like, tax dollars are being spent, laws have been written, legislation has been put in place, protections have been put in place for whistleblowers. I think I will, again, and I'd love to talk to this with a couple of buddies, which, by the way, here's another announcement. Matthew Riot, everybody take their hats off to Matt Riot here, asked me last week, he was like, hey man, you should do a show with Mataluni and Rather and do kind of like a recap and talk about what happened and everything that's happened since the show's ended. I was like, man, yeah, of course, I'd be down for that. But I told him, I'm like, I don't think Mataluni's going to want to do it. He's just busy. He's a busy dude. And honestly, he had it up to here with the UFO discussion, but especially the people, the community. He had it up to here. And also the lack of information. the inconsistent information. And I was like, hey man, I'd love to do it, but I think I could get Rather, but I don't think Mataluni will do it. He's like, well, let me try. I'm like, go for it. And he got him. So we're going to have a reunion episode with Rather and Mataluni. And yeah, we're going to just look back and discuss everything that's happened. And, you know, and yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be a fun show. I'm not sure when. I haven't set a date yet. We're still sort of solidifying that, but wanted to give you guys that heads up. So let's get into this interview, because I've delayed long enough. So, well, no, I guess I'm not delaying. I'm just kind of prefacing this stuff, you know, because I don't want the ire to go to Curt. Curt hasn't done anything wrong. Curt's not the one making the claims. Your ire should be at the guy making the claims, the guy being interviewed. I think out of all of the interviews that Curt Jaimungal has done with Lue Elizondo, I think this is one where he held his feet to the fire the most, especially in certain moments. And those are the moments I want to focus on, particularly the orbs that Lue discusses. And Curt's questions for that, because I thought they were really good. But I also want to discuss, like, his trepidation. His, like Kelly Chase said, the need to hedge and apologize in advance for daring to point out inconsistencies or, like, legitimate questions to the claims that you're making. 75 YBA says, I did notice that Curt asked the exact same questions that several other UAP folks did on their channels. Quote, how do you deal with online hate? A bit too coincidental, if you ask me. I can tell you right now, just as a guy who's interviewed Elizondo 7 times, he's never once asked me to bring anything up, to reference anything. Never once. For some people, he doesn't have to do that for them to attack or make claims or whatever. But when he goes into interviews, there is no pre-planning of any of his interviews, and I still do believe that to this day. And I believe that because when you go back and listen to everything he's written and said, none of it matches up. So it tells you he's making up a lot of these conversations on the fly, and he's also referencing what he wrote down, and he's referencing other people's stories. He's referencing, like, we're gonna get into it, but I would say, again, like, I know people are gonna be like, well, why didn't Curt ask this? Why didn't Curt ask that? And trust me when I tell you, I had those same feelings rise up too. But I also had to remind myself, and I know better than most, how hard it is to walk this razor. It's incredibly difficult. He did ask him tough questions in the most respectful Curt Jaimungal way. Curt's not a journalist. Curt's not a comedian like me. Curt's not rather be squitting. He's not going to attack people on his show. Like, even the question, and I'll tell you a story about Curt. I think I've told it on the show. After that Linda Moulton Howe interview, he was gutted. Like, he didn't think the question that I had wrote, that he had asked her, that sent her off into an absolute tangent where she basically walked off the show, and provided the most awkward moment in ufology history. Maybe it's definitely in the top 3, on such a simple question. And the way Curt prefaced the question the way Curt followed up after the question was asked, you could tell he was trying to make her as comfortable as possible, but it was a question that that exposed her lack of journalistic integrity. She has no process. It sounded like somebody slammed my front door. Hold on a second. That was weird. I don't know. Heard something. But yeah, so like I don't blame Curt for trying to push back without, well, first of all, so you don't, you can ask as many questions as you can. Like I also know, like, going into an interview, you go, okay, I'm going to ask him this, and this, and that's going to set him up perfectly for the question I really want to ask him. And what he does is he answers a question for 20 minutes. He gives you analogies and examples and all sorts of stuff, but actually answering the fucking question. And so by the time an hour hits, you've got a half hour left and you've only gotten 4 questions in. And you still got 6 more to set up the one that you really want to ask. It's frustrating. I'm sure as an interview, for me, I can only speak for me. It was frustrating. That's the most frustrating part about interviewing Lue Elizondo. Is, and like I've told everyone, that sock puppet question, we sat on it for a year. Because we knew the second we asked it, it was going to be bad for me. And for Rather. Like, we just knew. We knew it was going to be bad. But it had to be asked. It had to be asked. And the beautiful thing is that he didn't just leave right away. He stuck around and answered more questions. And I think, again, like, go back and look at it because it's on our LuCR Rewinds playlist, or UCR Rewind playlist. We got a lot of great questions in that interview after the sock puppet question. Especially, our speed round of questions. Like, it'd be interesting to go back and watch that juxtaposed to his book now, and re-listen to his answers on that. Anyway, all this is to say is that Curt isn't the one that you should be frustrated with. Because I can promise you, Curt is frustrated with this topic. He said it himself. It's why he's stopped, for the most part, having this discussion. So let's So it was both of our questions. UFO reality check. Cambian's question asked her about the video game cover, which got her pissed off. And then my question and then mine was the very next question. My question was about, has she ever had to correct a story? Go back and just say, hey, we got this wrong. And that question melted her fucking brain. At that point, that was it. She wanted nothing else to do with it. So it was both of our questions. Yeah, it was both of ours. Yeah, but mine was the last question. My question ended the interview, and any interview with Linda Moulton Howe on the Curt Jaimungal channel ever. And like I said, he was gutted about it. Like, he was not. And there was a lot of people telling him, hey, dude, that wasn't your fault. Like, That wasn't your fault. You asked her a very simple question. And I even prefaced with the question with, hey, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge Linda fan. Just curious, have you ever had to go back and correct a story? You know, something that you got wrong. Thanks. Like, it was a softball question. Really simple. Because any great journalist would be like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, too many to remember. Like, yeah, journalists get stuff wrong all the time and they have to fix things all the time. That's why it's got to go through an editor. You know, so it's not a crazy question. Anyway, yeah, it melted her brain. So this is now Elizondo's 4th appearance on. I still have interviewed Lue Elizondo more than anybody. And it also there was a moment here too where he talked about his dad, and that was the moment where I felt bad, not bad, but just, you know, I felt remorse for Elizondo. You know, losing a parent is, I'm sure, not easy. I've never had to experience that, so I'm sure there was a lot of mixed emotions. I have a feeling he had a very complicated relationship with his dad, because if you listen to his description of the ride from, I think he said, Wyoming to Florida, they drove him all the way back home to stay with his sister, and then he passed. You know, just the conversations that they had just seemed, I don't know, a little weird. But I don't want to harp too much on it, but I just felt like they had a tenuous, and you read in the book, like he had public outbursts when he was a kid, you know, at restaurants that embarrassed him. And like, there was a lot of stuff that went into Elizondo's childhood. So, but it did make me go, damn, dude, I'm the only guy who's got his father on camera in an interview. This show. I was incredibly proud of that. You know, his dad, my dad, him and me. It was a really cool moment. And one I'm proud of. Like, that's not one that I look on with any regret. And I think maybe, you know, in time it'll be valuable in some way. To me, it's incredibly valuable. But I hope Elizondo, you know, looks at that interview just as fondly as I do, because that's his dad on tape for 2 hours, an hour and a half, whatever it was. You know, and talking about dad shit. It was cool. Anyway, just made me think of that. So let's check out the moment. Where are the orbs? I think, you know what? Let's go to transcript. If you guys don't know, you can always go to the YouTube transcript at the bottom of the comments and then hit Control F, and then it'll pop up a search bar and it'll give you the timestamp, even the comments, as to where this conversation started. So, yep, green diffuse orbs. We're going to talk about that. Okay, so that's not the part. Ah, there it is. All right, so lose it. Did he? Yeah, okay, there it is. I missed it. All right, here it is. But anyway, if you're looking for something in a video, that's the best way to do it. So there you go. So 2756, this is where he talks about the orb. So let's take a listen to this.
In your book, the one about orbs. Why don't you give the story about the orbs? Why don't you bring the audience up to speed, please? And by the way, this is in the book named Imminent.
Yeah, so let me first preface. My family and I, to include a couple neighbors, experienced something very odd over the course of a period of time.
By the way, fair use. We're educating the public on the video that we are sharing. We're also critiquing it, and in some cases mocking it. This is covered under fair use and allowable by law. Again, the full link to the full interview is in the description below. I'm going to go ahead and play this again and lower my desk.
while I was associated with the ATIP program. And there were these diffuse green, luminous balls of light with no hard edge. Think of like a neon sign, how it kind of glows. This was the size, anywhere between the size of a volleyball to the size of a little baseball. And they were seen not only by me, and I wouldn't have said anything if I wasn't one to see them, but my wife and my children saw these luminous balls float down the hallway, in some cases, of our home and pass right through a wall or through a door. Now, the only congruency I can say definitively is that when we had experienced these balls of light, whatever they were, it was during a time that I was involved in the ATIP program. And it turns out other individuals who were also involved in that program also experienced similar encounters. That's their story to tell, not mine. But definitively, we had that encounter since going back to like 2010.
Okay, so since 2010, when did he join ATIP? Wasn't it 2012? The chat. What year did Elizondo get recruited into OSAP? Because was it 2008 or is it 2012? I'm conflicting my dates here, but yeah, if anyone in the chat knows, let me know.
Very early on. Now, let me preface this. Could have been ball lightning. Sure. Could there be an electrical glitch and a wiring problem in my house that was creating some sort of St. Elmo's fire effect? Sure. Could it have been some sort of...
Well, he did have construction on his house. So maybe. I mean, it's a rational explanation. It's one I would go with before whatever it is you're about to say.
Plasma energy, because there was a storm 20 miles away that did something with the atmosphere, and now because of the electrical conduit in my house, ball lightning was experienced and static charge. I don't know. It is possible, absolutely. I can only relay to you what actually occurred, and whether or not there was a connection between that and the UAP phenomenon. Some people say yes. Some people say definitively yes. There's a connection there. We don't know what they are. Maybe they're drones. Maybe there's...
Man, here's the thing, man. I would love the body language experts to take a look at this interview. I think this is probably one of the best ones you're going to get of Elizondo. I think this one's better than the Rogan interview. That's for damn sure. I get the sense he's not lying. But then again, I don't know. We have had his wife come out and back up this claim. She gives a very short description of what happened. I would, again, like, and Curt touches on this, but somebody should interview the daughters, him, wife, and the neighbors. You were part of ATIP and OSAP. You couldn't get an investigative team together to come to your house and record the fucking orbs going through your walls? Let's continue. Let's keep going.
There's some sort of unmanned vehicle, surveillance vehicle, ISR type capability to monitor things. I couldn't tell you. I just know it did not seem to be technological. And then when you talk to other people, like indigenous people, they ascribe that to being spirits, right? It has nothing to do with UAP. It actually has to do with spirits and ancestors coming to visit you. And then you talk to some other folks that have a different explanation for it. You talk to scientists, they say, oh, it's just ball lightning. But it was very strange. And so I decided to put it in the book because I don't know what it means.
It is funny that the excuses that he puts out there, like he mentions the conduit in his house twice in two separate scenarios. So that's what leads me to believe that maybe he did see something like that. And maybe he was like, figured it out that it was an electrical static charge. Maybe his neighbors did see something, you know, an orb like green thing. It is, what are the fucking odds? What are the odds? And so that's why I'm like, knowing Elizondo, it's like I'll be 100% honest with you guys. The thing that keeps screaming and on repeat, living rent free in my brain right now is Alejandro Rojas saying, Lou, he lies all the time. Elizondo lies all the time. I've caught him in so many lies. That's what he told me. That's what he told me. And then when you ask him, well, why do you continue to work with this guy? He's got great access. You know, there are things that he says that do check out. What? Like what? And so that's why I want to believe him. And I think that's why he's the best messenger. Because imagine you're sitting there with him and he's telling you this. Like, you get a sincerity from this guy. And you want to believe this orb story. I do. I want to believe it. But I just can't. I can't. And I won't. How about that? I won't, Elizondo. I'm not going to believe this one.
But I wanted to be transparent and share that with the reader.
And when you say your wife and your children also saw it, you saw it at the same time, or they also reported it, but at different times?
Both. Sometimes we all saw it together. We were in the living room watching TV, and from the kitchen right down the hallway, it just kind of floats by, and disappears. And it actually, to the point where it illuminates, I don't know if you can see behind me the wall here, but kind of like the ambient light here is illuminating the wall behind me. It would actually illuminate the surrounding sheetrock, the drywall. It was there was definitely it was luminous, but you couldn't see anything in the middle.
Okay, so it was emitting light.
The thing about this story is it sounds a lot like mine. It sounds like a lot of orb stories that I've heard in the past from witnesses and experiencers. It's nothing new. And so those details are not, they could be borrowed, easily borrowed. Spy says, anyone remember that UFO story this guy told? Seen it with a group of people. Lue reviews calling the kettle black. Anyone remember that UFO story this guy told? What? I don't understand the first part. Are you talking about me? Lue reviews calling the kettle black. Hey man, if you want to listen to my story, I made it available. This very first episode in our UCR Rewinds playlist. Go check it out. I tell my story there. It's the most detailed version of my story. I even have a shitty painting of it. It's really terrible. But like I said in that episode, the very first episode, this story is not evidence. And I'll never use it as evidence. It's just a story. And it's an old 30-year-old story at that. And so therefore its details have changed. So I hope that answers whatever your statement here is. All right, let's continue.
Right.
It was emitting light.
Did you feel anything when it would come by, other than maybe the fear or anxiety associated with something unknown? Did you feel something like...
Nothing. No. And some people report feeling like a static charge or something. Nothing at all. But to be truthful with you, I wasn't necessarily going to go up and touch it either.
Oh, how about psychologically? Like dread?
No fear. I think a wonderment, curiosity from my wife and my kids. My kids had a lot easier time. They sometimes giggle about it when they were young. My wife was when more...
they were young. Okay, so this is, he said 2008 or 2010. It's one of those dates. So he wasn't living in Wyoming at that point. So this had to have been a much older house. He must have been living in either... I don't think he lived in Florida with his wife. If he did, it was at the beginning of his relationship. This had to have been Maryland, right? When he was working at the Department of Defense. This is when he was approached. Yeah, it had to have been DC. His DC home.
Curious as in, what is that? And Did you all see that? Yeah, we're sitting right here. We all saw it too. Um, no fear. I don't. If you'd have to ask my wife. I don't think she had a sense of fear at all. Which, looking back, maybe it's kind of bizarre.
Hmm.
I think if I were to tell you, hey, you're going to have a green orb of light in your house today or tonight, people might there might be some element of fear. But if you're just sitting down watching TV, not expecting it, and boom, it just goes by. I'm not sure there's even time to have fear. It's kind of just as
Oh,
wow, that's
how quick was it then?
slow. Maybe, gosh, let's say this phone fuel rod is it? Boy, it's hard to
Huh.
like that all the way down the hall. I mean, enough where like walking speed. Sometimes like a fast walking speed, like kind of a brisk walking speed.
You see, like, if I saw that in my house, not just once, but multiple times, I would have stood up and been like, what the fuck is that? I think my response would have been much, much bigger. Whoa, you guys seeing this? 2010? Is the iPhone out? No, probably not. It wasn't very rampant, I think, around then. It was out, but I don't think everyone had them. And he has also talked about this in the interview. He had a government issued BlackBerry phone, and they disabled all the cameras in the Blackberries. But like the response to something like that in your house, he was just kind of like sitting there watching TV. The way he describes it is sitting there watching TV, drinking his Bud Light, because he loves Bud Light, right? He's a big Bud Light fan, I bet. I bet he loves Bud Light. Sitting there, drinking his Bud Light with his family, watching Turner and Hooch, and all of a sudden, a green orb pops in your fucking living room. And your response is, huh. Wow. Hmm. You guys see that? It's going down the hallway. All right, well, back to Turner and Hooch. Oh, this is the part where Hooch dies. Sad. Anyway, like, nobody got up. Nobody was like, whoa, what the fuck? And especially the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh time, which sounds like it did happen that many times. Let's listen to the rest of it.
It never
So interesting.
it never hung around. It didn't loiter. It didn't come up to your face. It didn't scan anything. You was just in the house, and it would go right through a wall or right through a door without making a sound, without disturbing anything. Like it was cotton, just right through. Really weird.
And was there any correlation between time of day?
No, well, no, that's not true. It happened mostly in the evenings, early evenings, late evenings. We were mostly asleep, so I couldn't tell you if it did happen. We never saw we were sleeping, but anywhere between 5 to 8 o'clock at night, and it would happen randomly, different parts of the house. It was, some people laughed because, oh, well, you got a cemetery nearby, which we did. We had a cemetery nearby the house, probably about half a block away. But I don't think the two are related at all. I don't think it was. I mean, some people said there. I mean, certain Aboriginal people say there's a connection between, these luminous balls and potentially, I guess, ancestors and spirits.
It's almost like he's skeptical of it himself. Well, some Aboriginal people say, I don't know, it could be spirits. I don't know. I don't know. He's just very. Again, this is the same attitude, Curt, if you're watching, which I think you are. This is the same attitude I imagine that you saw behind the scenes at the Soul Foundation with all of the presenters, where everybody's like, and they're kind of just, pissed off with online trolls, and they're like, they're not as, the people in the audience are more excited for the information than the people presenting the information. And that's what this story is coming off as. It's just, it's almost like he's indifferent. Meh. Yeah, meh. He's like, almost like, I don't know, it's just so
spirits,
weird.
But I never came to that conclusion.
Did they zigzag, or was it a smooth
Very
motion or a
smooth. No,
straight motion?
very smooth, very straight. There was no erratic. It was literally like taking a balloon and letting it just kind of float down the hallway. It wouldn't zigzag. It wasn't trying to evade anything. It would just kind of float right on through.
It almost sounds like maybe it was a headlight reflection going through your home. Certain time of night at the right angle, you get this thing of light that just, because a car might be slowly turning a corner or pulling out of a driveway or pulling into yours, or who knows. But it's the way it kind of feels to me.
If you saw one in a day, you would not see it.
Correct. It was usually just one a day. They didn't come in pairs. They didn't seem to be coordinating. It would just appear and just, or sometimes would go a little slower, sometimes a little faster, in the kitchen, in the hallway, in the living room. Yeah. Very, very perplexing.
My phrasing was quite ambiguous. When I said one per day, I didn't mean every day you saw it. I meant if you saw it, you would not see a second one in the same day.
Correct.
So how frequent would you see it? Would it once per week on average? Once a month?
No, once every couple weeks. Once every 2 to 3
From
weeks.
2010?
Oh, all the way through. Oh, no. All the way till probably 2015, 2016.
2015.
So it's only really, it would kind of, there'd be moments where you'd have increased frequency. And
so
then
basically right until he retired. Right until he moved out of the house. Essentially. Oh, no. What did I do?
There, who was very...
No. 20. All right, let's go back to, if we can find this. Let's see, 20. What do you say? 2015? Yeah, right here.
All the way through. Oh, no. All the way till probably 2015, 2016. So it's only really... It would kind of, there'd be moments where you'd have increased frequency, and then maybe for a month or two, you wouldn't see it. And then all of a sudden, 4 days in a row, you'd see it, and then it just would be gone.
Okay, so that's incredibly important. Okay, that's an incredibly important thing to note here. So let's just get that right. Okay, so he asks, so how frequent would you see it? Was it once per week on average? Once a month? No, it was every couple of weeks. Once every 2 to 3 weeks from 2010. Kurt asked from 2010. Oh, all the way through. Oh no, it was probably till about 2015, 2016. So for six years, for 6 years, you would see this thing 2 to 3 times a week. Could we do the math on this? I know I'm always terrible with the math, but we got to try. We got to try, right? So let's just say 3 times a week, right? 3 times 52 weeks a year. That's 156 sightings every year. Times 6 years. That's 936 sightings in your home. Almost 1,000 moments where orbs were flying through your home. You didn't record it. You didn't picture it. You didn't report it. You didn't get your friends to help you look at it. What? And so now that voice, that Alejandro Rojas, bro, he lies all the time, is now even stronger and solidified, really. In what world does that make sense? If I had orbs flying through my fucking home every day or 3 times a week, 156 times a year, right? Was that what it was? Whatever. 936 times in a 6-year period, and you didn't think of one fucking time Not your kids, not your neighbors, not you. Nobody decided, hey man, maybe we should record this and report it to somebody. Or, oh, I don't know. If I decide to go public with a amazing story about UFOs and orbs, I could also come to the table with multiple witnesses in my family and my neighbors and pictures and photographs and handwritten notes on the days that it happened. Could have been useful now, huh, Lou? That probably would have been way more fucking interesting of a book. I can tell you that. 936 orbs that you've seen. So Curt gets to this in his way, but he gets to this.
Was it blinding to look at?
Not at all. No, not at all. It was, like when you look at the sun, your eyes hurt and you see spots. Not at all. This was like looking at your TV, or like I'm looking at this monitor right now. It's bright, but it doesn't hurt my eyes. It's like a passive illumination. It wasn't like it was glowing. It wasn't like an active spotlight in your eyes. It was just a diffuse green ball. And as you got closer to it, it seemed to get thicker and thicker in the middle.
Were you able to see the interior of it?
There was no interior that I could see. It literally looked like a neon light where it was more brilliant in the center and it just became more diffuse. There was no hard edges. There did not seem to be any technology behind it. There wasn't a device, if you will, inside. It was like, probably best way, like a plasma ball, but not as intense, not as violent, if that makes sense.
Did you ever set up cameras?
So no, we didn't have cameras inside the house. We had cell phones, but back in 2010, I was using a BlackBerry, a government issued BlackBerry.
What about in 2016? The iPhones were definitely around in everybody's fucking hands around that time. In 2016, that's an iPhone 6 or 7, somewhere around there? Maybe even later? Like, that's definitely an HD camera. I'm not here, this isn't happening. Says, why wait till now to talk about it? It's a great point. It's a great point. I mean, he'll say because he didn't want to delegitimize the conversation. He's always said he didn't want to bring in his personal baggage to the conversation. So now he's able to spill all of his personal baggage because it's selling a book. And stories like this really placate to believers. They love shit like this. They love stories. They love, trust me, bro. This happened, bro. Trust me. It was a little orb, just like you. As a matter of fact, it was exactly like yours, right? Like yours got more thicker in the middle, right? Yeah, so did mine. Yeah, it was like a neon light, but it didn't blind you, man. It just floated down the house like a balloon. He's playing you guys. He's playing you guys so hard.
Where we did not have cameras, the cameras were disabled. So and also we couldn't predict the frequency. It wasn't like I had a camera next to me all the time. It's like when you're sitting down and watching a TV show with a family, all of a sudden, whoop, there it goes.
I just mean home set up cameras in the corner monitoring a room or the outside.
No, we did not. We didn't even have cameras externally.
And I'm sure Curt did that math in his head. I'm sure he came up to 936 in 6 years simply as soon as it was said. And so now he's going, well, what about cameras, man? Like, you didn't put any cameras in there? So, bravo to Curt for pushing back on this. Like, it's a good question.
We had an alarm system, but we did not have cameras.
Right, but that alarm system clearly wasn't being tripped by the orbs. So, what the fuck? Why even bring that up? Who cares?
Set up in the house.
So many people may say, look, if there's a suspected burglar that taps on my window, perhaps I'm paranoid, but I would set up the next day 10 cameras all around my house, inside,
Sure,
outside.
I would too if it's a
Now,
burglar.
that may be an overreaction, but
Well, let me ask you this: when
I would too if it's a burglar. And here's the most contradictory part to this whole fucking story is his muddy boot prints analogy, which I think he's gonna whip out right now. I think he is. I think this is when he whips it out. I'm looking at the text. I don't see muddy boot prints, but it's the whole muddy boot prints analogy. If you came into your house, which was locked, and you saw a set of muddy boot prints all over your home, but you didn't find anybody, nothing was stolen, nothing was touched, what would you do? You'd probably set up cameras and alarm systems and maybe even arm yourself. Because you don't know if it's a threat, but you're also not going to wait around to find out. That whole analogy gets absolutely, it's mooted with this story because he didn't even do that. 936 fucking orbs going through his house in a 6-year period. And so 936 muddy boot prints in your home, and you did squat. You did shit. So why even whip out that analogy anymore? It's the dumbest thing. And here's the thing is, I don't think Curt's hurt that analogy. Curt doesn't listen to every interview this guy's had. Curt doesn't, he doesn't do that. He's not a UFO guy. He's interested. He's curious. He wants to talk to the right people about it. But he's become apathetic because there's no data, man. There's no nut for the squirrel.
When there's a thunderstorm near your neighborhood, do you?
By the way, we're halfway through the show. If you haven't liked the show, let's see. There's 140 of you watching on YouTube. Please do me a favor, smack that like button right now. It really helps the algorithm. Truly appreciate it. And if you haven't, subscribe, share the show. Let's get some more people in here. Can we get 200 people in here? If everybody shared the show, maybe we get 200 people in here. That'd be cool. A guy's talking about UFOs. You can share it and go, guy is yelling about how UFOs are bullshit. And I think he's right. That might bring some people in.
You set up cameras to look at the lightning? No, it's interesting, but most people...
Do you set up cameras to look at the lightning? No, because lightning has been filmed before. Jerk off. It's been documented. Like, what the fuck are you... like, these analogies that he uses when you listen to them, especially now that you've got the glasses on, like in They Live, and you can see through all the bullshit. All right, do you set up Curt, let me ask you a question. Curt, one of the smartest guys on the planet. Curt, when you hear thunder, do you set up cameras outside of your house to record the lightning? No, because see, I could go on YouTube and fucking Google lightning or type in lightning and get 8 billion videos of lightning in slow motion, striking a tree, striking a human, striking a boat, striking a pole. Like, you can get lightning cut in slow motion. You see it actually comes from the ground. Yeah, scary. Right? Lightning's scary. But just because I hear thunder doesn't mean I'm going to go record the lightning, jerky. What in the... It's insulting. It's insulting to think we're that fucking stupid.
Just look at that's curiosity, right? Wow, interesting. It was the same thing with us. There wasn't necessarily a desire to set up a bunch of cameras because you never knew where it was going to appear. I could put 10 cameras in the hallway. Go ahead.
It didn't occur to you to set up cameras and then you said no. It just never occurred to you. The thought.
No, because it wasn't alarming to us. It was curious.
936 times wasn't alarming. It was curious. We were curious about it. No, you weren't, because if you were curious about it, you'd fucking find out what it was. Try to interact with it. Record it. Take a picture of it. I mean, you knew the hallway. It kept going. This is why I think, and this happened to fucking Carl the Crusher, where these lights were going across a mountain, and it turned, and I was like, bro, I would run this by Mick West. I would run this by the local universities to see if it's something in the dirt that's causing this glow or this shape. There could be a lot of explanations for this. It turned out it was cars from a few miles away turning on a mountain and causing this illusion as if the mountain is glowing. This is the exact same shit. It's like, dude, it sounds that way anyway. It sounds like this was a light at a certain time of day in the late afternoon that got reflected in their home, and he's taking that thing. This is my, I have no idea if this has happened. This is just what I'm thinking, right? This is just me free thinking. But it was probably a light that annoyed them. It was a reflection that happened every time at this day, and he's using that story coupled with Jay Stratton's actual stories and his belief systems and other people's belief systems and stories, combining those two things and giving you some truth. Yeah, this crazy light would go slowly down the hallway. But we didn't record it. Of course not, because we figured out what it fucking was. Turns out it was just it's the street we live on. It's a reflection when the cars drive by. And I bet if we go to his house that he used to live in at that address and we sit there for a week and record 24/7 for a full week, we will find something that resembles what he's describing. And I promise you, it would be natural. And guess what? If I had the money, to do something like that, I would do it tomorrow. I'd buy the plane tickets, I'd rent the fucking house, I'd set up the cameras, and then I'd do a live stream from his house, his former old house, to see if we could see the same orbs that he saw. And I bet we do, but they won't turn out to be actual orbs. It'll be something very mundane. Dude, this guy, man, pray to God. If you're a believer, pray to God I don't start getting budgets. And I don't think there's enough praying that you could do, because budgets are coming. Budgets are on their way. Just like, what's his face? Fucking Nutball in the Cabin. The Nutball in the Cabin. What's his name? The fuck's that guy's name? Anyway. The funding is on the way. And I promise you, man, like, we've got so many ideas for this conversation. But let's continue.
I was curious. We were curious about it, but you didn't know where it was going to appear, right? Sometime in a hallway, sometimes in the kitchen. I mean, I can't put 1,000 cameras around the house and hope that I'm going to, have every single one of them on all the time, hope to capture something. It wasn't that big of a deal to us. It was just, let's see. Curious.
Why do you think they no longer?
Unbelievable. Curious. He's just so indifferent about it. It's so weird, dude. I've never heard. He is the only experiencer in my life. And if you're an experiencer, if you're a believer, ask yourself this question: have you ever heard a UFO confession like that, where they saw it 936 times over a 6-year period and just didn't care? Wasn't that impressive? Wasn't impressive enough to try and document it? Yeah, I'm just curious. I think it's bullshit. My humble opinion is that it's bullshit.
No longer appear unless they do.
I have no idea. No, they don't. And I don't know why. And I couldn't tell you why. And, it was episodic.
I can tell you why. You moved to a different house, and that reflection just doesn't happen there anymore. because Orb should still be following you, right? Because he's inferring that these orbs started popping up the moment he joined OSAP. And his wife even asked him, hey, does this have anything to do with the SAP you're working on? And he's like, I don't know, maybe. Like, dude, Complizier, thank you for the donation. Says orbs, orbs, and an orb, and an orb, and an orb. Lue Elizondo. It's like dude, it's a song for him. He's just dancing. Dancing, dude. And now, like,
it's bizarre, but it could have a completely natural explanation. That's why I'm very careful not to assume or presume anything. What I can tell you is that it was witnessed by a lot of people, and it wasn't just us. There were other people that were involved in ATIP at the time that also experienced similar things. And again, I don't know the relationship. Could it be coincidental? Doubtful, but it could be, I guess.
In chapter 4 of Imminent, you reference something called the hitchhiker effect.
All right, so that's his orbs story. Okay, I'm not gonna go into the hitchhiker effect part. I just honestly, I don't have time or the patience. We could get into his security clearance because I thought that was interesting. But let's see here. How much time do we have left? We have about 40 minutes. Okay, so honestly, this is the part that I want to talk about because it's the part that pissed me off the most, and it's the part where I hope, as someone who was interviewing him, Curt said to himself, "What the fuck? Like, what the fuck? How's that even possible?" So, what am I talking about? His remote viewing claims. So this is actually two great back-to-back questions asked by Curt because I think it exposed him so fucking hard. And man, I hope Curt gets another interview with Elizondo. If I had to take a guess, I'm going to guess no. I don't think he's going to get another interview because I think this interview flirted a little too much. And to be honest, ever since my show, I'm sure Cahill is warning him profusely on who to be careful, what shows to be careful with, and how much time you give certain people, especially a Curt. Because if you gave Curt 5 hours, I think we would have had a lot of moments just like we get into this one here. And this took an hour and 23 to get to. So the timestamp is 1:23:44, and the question here is, does Lue meditate? Do you meditate, Luis Elizondo? Let's listen to his answer.
Do you meditate?
Oh my gosh. I've had someone ask me that, Curt. I don't know how to meditate, brother. I got too much going.
I don't know how to meditate, brother.
On up here.
Okay.
I wish I could. People would say, oh man, you got to meditate. When I'm not drinking coffee and I'm not running 1,000,000 miles an hour, I'm sleeping. Or, I do hit the gym, obviously. I do work out quite a bit. That's kind of my thing. Maybe that's meditation for the body. But no, I don't.
How about remote viewing? Do you still engage in remote viewing?
I will just simply say yes, and I don't want to expound upon that.
Okay. Complizier, another donation. Thank you, my man. It's bizarre, but it's still Luis Elizondo. To be a remote viewer, the prerequisite to doing that is the ability to meditate and calm your mind and focus on a target that's far away. And this man claims that he still remote views, and he claims in his book that he tortured somebody through his remote viewing superpower, along with a few other colleagues. How can you remote view and concentrate and slow your mind down to focus on a target and not be able to meditate? You just can't do it, brother. How does the ability of not being able to meditate and the ability to torture someone through your remote viewing powers, how could you separate those two? Because I've never heard of one remote viewer, not fucking one, that has not talked through about the process of remote viewing. You got to be in a quiet place. You got to be able to concentrate. It's almost like meditation. You're opening yourself up. The whole third eye, the opening yourself up, all of those things can only be accessed through a form of meditation. And I'm sorry, pumping iron ain't one of them. So no, I'm not going to count that. He drinks too much coffee to meditate, brother. But he can remote view with the best of them? This is the biggest load of shit I've ever heard. And Kelly Chase, girl, I got your back. If you want to tweet about this inconsistency, how's it possible to not be able to meditate and also remote view? Are those things, can they coexist? Because I think Elizondo is lying when he claims that. Or I don't think those claims line up. And I don't want to hedge asking this question with an apology. Just ask it. The OSAP ATIP inconsistencies are questionable. His remote viewing claims are incredibly questionable. After listening now a second time to his orb stories, those are incredibly questionable. I dare Kelly Chase, or any believer for that matter, to go find me another story that sounds like Elizondo's, where they were visited by orbs over 900 times, 936 to be exact. And that's off of the numbers he provided. 3 to 4 times a week. And we went with 3. So it could be even higher. Now, one picture. It took 7 years to get this story. I'll start the GoFundMe for your expedition. No need. The funding is on the way. It's we have to do one project first. Once that one project is done, it's going to open the doors for so many other things just like that idea. Because, yeah, I want to go and find the house. I want to go and talk to the neighbors. I want to go and talk to the people that live in the house. Hey, have you guys ever seen any strange orbs around, I don't know, between 5 and 6:45 at night? Yeah, we see it all the time. It's a goddamn road down the street. Holy shit, dude. Like, but I dare anyone in the UFO community to ask that question in a space. Any thought leader. I dare Matt Ford to even fucking think it, let alone say it out loud or tweet it, God forbid. That guy can't think for himself. It's nice to see Kelly Chase can, a little bit. You know? It's like, dude, it's so funny. I have to point this out. Just because it was so ridiculous. It was so laughable. Actually, let's see where, dude, why is it? No, that's not. dude. Did he block me again? Come on, right? No. There's no way. There he is. Okay. He did have me blocked for a little while. Okay, so he puts out this thing. This is about our buddy Chris. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, where's the thing that you said? I want to find it. Dude, using a Rick and Morty clip to underline some meaning and legitimacy to your nonsense, dude. It's all right. Where is it? Where is it? I shall find it, guys. I shall find it. It's here. It's somewhere. Ba ba ba. Man, he posts a lot. I can't really complain about that. I do as well. Okay, wow. Let's go. Dude, I hate the search on Twitter. On Twitter. I wonder if he responded to it. Damn it. I hate when things disappear like that. Anyway, Jay was basically saying, oh, yeah, you know, even though I don't totally agree with everything that Chris says, he's a really great skeptic in the community, and I'm almost there. Like, I'm almost right there. If it wasn't for my own personal experience, I would be right where Chris is. And that's right there in a nutshell, everything wrong with Project Unity and his way of thinking is he has completely thrown out the window that he could have manifested that experience himself, especially considering he was practicing the CE5 protocols at the moment that it happened. And when we've talked to our clinical psychiatrists, who's been on our show, our friend Andres, he's told us, like, the CE5 protocols are literally a self-hypnotizing protocols, word for word. It's just a different book cover. And there's a lot of therapeutic reasons to do self-hypnotherapy. You want to quit smoking, whatever it is. Like, there are tricks that you can do to trick your mind into not doing things or doing certain things. And you could also trick your mind into seeing orbs right in front of your face. You can do that. So if Elizondo was doing CE5 protocols and the family was doing CE5 protocols with him at the same time, I don't know if that's the case. Now it's really understandable how you saw orbs. But it's the same thing with Jay, man. Like, it's your experience is not evidence, man. And then you go out and you make these proclamations and you make these comparisons and you think that they're underlying your belief system or they're proving your belief system as real, and they're not. You're not a philosopher. You're not a mathematician. You're not an astronomer. You're not a psychologist. You're not a fucking scientist on any level. You're just a guy. You're just a guy who talks on the internet. You're not bringing any qualifications to any of the claims that you make. And that's the difference between me and you, is I'm not making fucking claims. I know I'm not qualified to make any fucking claims whatsoever. Or state truths or facts. The only facts we talk about here are about the things we can actually touch, taste, feel, and been reported. The facts. You talk about ether. You talk about smoke that is uncatchable. Slips through your fingers every time. And you're using your experience to justify or sort of convince people that you've caught the smoke. You haven't. You haven't, dude. You haven't come close to catching that smoke. B. Baker says, I know Kelly blocked you, but you should get word to her and have her on the show. Share the clip with her if you know her, B. Baker. I'd love to have her on the show, but that would be career suicide for the UFO rabbit hole. It'll never happen. This, I promise you, is... I'll be shocked if we see another outburst like this from her again. I'd be shocked. Because the repercussions of saying that are felt. Trust me. When you lose $200 or $300 Patreon members, like, that shit hurts. It hurts. It hurts. And so you're not going to put that at risk. I'm telling you. Very few people will say, well, to hell with that. I was one of them. And so that's what I'm standing on. That's the foundation this show fucking stands on. That's why I have no filter. I don't have to have one anymore. I've been down all the same rabbit holes. I've talked to more people. I've talked to the people they want to talk to infinitely more than they've ever have or ever will. I've been deeper and have had more experience down that rabbit hole than any of them. And they're not going to give it up, B. They're not. They're not. They're going to get frustrated, and that frustration leaks and bubbles to the surface every once in a while. But I promise you that this group of people are going to let her know, don't do that anymore. Don't do that anymore. So we'll see what happens. I won't hold my breath, but I'd love to have her on the show. Absolutely would love to have Kelly Chase on the show and debate this reality with her. And I put that in quotes for my podcasters. So let's see what else he has to say.
It's a topic that some people have trouble digesting, and I get it, and it's very controversial. But that's for another conversation. And fortunately,
listen to this. Listen to this. Listen to how he weasels out of this. The remote viewing. I wonder if Curt was going to ask him about the torture stuff. And he refers to it as controversial, then quickly makes a joke that someone like Curt took seriously. Because when you say something, Curt is analyzing it 17 different ways, except for humor. I don't think his brain filters, because he's not usually having humorous conversations, I think. And this is not a humorous conversation, and Lue just throws this joke to get him off the topic, I think, of remote viewing. And listen to what he says here, because I mean, shit, dude, this is weaseling out if I've ever seen and heard it.
It's a topic that some people have trouble digesting, and say yes.
Do you still engage in remote viewing?
I will just simply say yes, and I don't want to expound upon that. It's a topic that some people have trouble digesting, and I get it, and it's very controversial. But that's for another conversation. And
but that's for another. And you see how he drops out there? I don't know if he's looking at his wife. Somebody might be signaling to him, get out. Like, get out of this. I mean, look where his eyes are. They're not on the monitor.
In remote viewing.
I will just simply say yes, and I don't want to expound upon that. It's a topic that some people have trouble digesting, and I get it, and it's very controversial. But that's for another conversation.
Look, see, he's looking somewhere else right now. He's not looking at the monitor. I think he's getting this. Stop. Your time's up. And it's been an hour and 24 minutes. They just now got to the remote viewing. And he chimes in with, our time's up.
And fortunately, it looks like our time is up.
Well,
just when we get to the controversy part, just when we get to the part where I think you're about to ask me some tougher questions.
okay.
No, I'm just
Right, so-
come on, I'm just jerking your chain, man.
okay, jeez, Louise. then.
I'm kidding, but not kidding. Kidding, but not kidding. Like, seriously, you're getting close anyway. We're getting there. And this was a subtle sign of wrap it up. Wrap it up. Look how this is the most vulnerable we've seen him, because this is his awkward way of ending the interview.
It's just me and you here, Lou, and maybe 1 million other people.
Yeah.
So what can you say about it without violating any NDA?
Also, I got to keep in mind, this is an edited interview. So maybe it was 2 hours. So, the timing of this could be wrong. But, I mean, yeah, anyway.
Or what have you?
Yeah. So
Because I'm looking at the time. I mean, an hour 43:13. And this interview is definitely edited. So, yeah, it makes sense that maybe almost, almost 20 minutes of time. But yeah, about 16, almost 17 minutes of possibly unedited, like stuff that was taken out, possibly, if it was a 2-hour interview anyway.
I rarely do this. Let me give you the perspective as it was explained to me, because a lot of it seems like pseudoscience and mumbo jumbo. And the reality is that.
Why do you have to give us an example of? Why do you have to tell us a story of how somebody explained it to you? You're the remote viewer. You're the guy who can do it. You just claim you still do it. So why do you have to use somebody else's explanation on something that you're clearly very good at doing?
Let's start with an analogy here. Sorry.
Another analogy.
It's the way I talk. I'm Latino, and I kind of use analogies to explain myself.
Okay.
So I have 5 fundamental senses to judge the universe in which I live. And if I can't touch it, taste it, hear it, smell it, etc., I can't perceive it. And yet we know if I had the ability to have, let's say, cell phone vision, and I could see in GPS, I could see in 5G, I could see in AM and FM, I would perceive an entirely different reality around me. I'd be seeing in infrared and ultraviolet spectrums, microwave. So what does that actually mean? It says, well, I live in Wyoming where we have beautiful night skies. And
So here's the thing is we can see in those spectrums. You can go online. You can pick up telescopes and equipment that sees in those spectrums. So this analogy is already stupid because those are things we can do. Those are things that astrologists do every day. And yet they're not seeing UFOs and orbs.
And I can look at the stars and say how gorgeous they are. But if I look at that same part of the sky through a radio telescope, I'll see an entirely different reality. I'll see nebula. I'll see things beyond the spectrum that I can normally see. And so therefore, I see more of the universe. Right? So I only perceive through the electro-optical spectrum a very, very, very narrow sliver of what really is out there. And then you have the scalability.
That would be true if this was 1863. He'd be 100% right. But it's not. We have access to the technology now. It's like people have access to all sorts of stuff, all sorts of equipment. And our sliver is not just our eyeballs anymore. We've expanded that with instruments, man.
Of the universe, which I won't get into here, but the universe is enormous. And I don't think most people really appreciate just how big the universe really is. Just in the observable universe, there are more stars than there are grains of sand in all the beaches of all the world.
We've heard this, and that's not even his analogy. I'm pretty sure that came from Neil deGrasse Tyson.
World. So think about that for a minute, what that actually means. So we only perceive, because of how tiny we are to the universe, very, very small fraction of what's really out there. So some people have claimed that remote viewing, some scientists, is that human consciousness, the actual, not the intellectual thought process, but what makes us us and self-aware and sentient, is a quantum process in the brain, and involves a quantum. When I say quantum, literally the field of quantum mechanics. There is a process occurring in the brain, and that is what creates the illusion of self-awareness and consciousness. If that's the case, some scientists have proposed that let's go back to this analogy here, that pretend this is a cigar. Right?
You're right. It was Carl Sagan, guys. It was Carl Sagan that said that. Michael Perrone. Hi, what's up? Cool research results soon. Reach out if you'd like to talk about it. I don't know what you're talking about. You can reach out to me if it's that interesting. But it better be really interesting. I have a feeling it's UFO evidence, but I don't know. Reach out. At Lue Angeles. You can find me. I'm very easy to find.
Right? Smoking a cigar. You can compare time to the analogy of a cigar, where the past of a cigar is the ashes that's already burned. The future.
This is fucking like, he was using this analogy on my first interview. My question for this cigar analogy for him was, who's smoking the cigar? Right? Who's smoking the cigar? If the ashes are the past, the cherry's the present, and the rest of the cigar is the future, and the cherry is all of these things where they combine at once, who's smoking the sucker? Who's smoking the cigar, right? That's what I want to know. Because this cigar analogy implies that there's somebody who rolled the cigar, cut the cigar, lit the cigar, smoking the cigar. This is truly stupid. And kind of feel bad for Curt, because I think he was supposed to get a longer interview, but I don't know. I would only assume that just because of the time that Elizondo's been away and the tease in which this interview came with. And I also thought this was supposed to be an in-person interview. Maybe I got that wrong. But remember the silhouette? We talked about it. Like, the tease of this interview, and that he only got an hour and 43 minutes out of it. It's odd. I think everybody was expecting this interview to be 4 hours long, 5 hours long, multiple parts possibly. This is a tell-all book. You're a whistleblower, so let's dive into it, baby. You figured Joe Rogan would have done that. Nope. You figure Curt Jaimungal, definitely Curt Jaimungal would have done that, and this was the interview everybody was waiting to drop. And we get it, and he's cutting him off. He's like, okay, we got to the torture part, time's up. Let's wrap this bad boy up. Because they know it's coming. And I have a feeling, I really, really do, I think Curt had even more questions that we're going to cut to the bone a little more. I really do. The way he set up this question and the pushback that, honestly, out of all the interviews that Lue has done post book, this is the best one because it actually pushes back on him a few times. But the most important one is the orbs and his story about the orbs. I mean, it just makes no sense, you guys. It makes no sense at all. And the idea that he didn't film these things, again, a 6-year period, ask yourself this, Milk Fart and UAP Mike and all you other dummies out there that believe this shit. If you saw orbs flying in your house over 900 times, wouldn't you record it? Wouldn't you document that from multiple angles? Because you can. Because you know where it's going to show up. It comes 3 to 4 times a week. Maybe you don't catch it every time, but I bet if you filmed it even half of the 900 times, you'd get at least 40 or 50 videos out of that with multiple angles and genuine reactions to it. Like, holy shit. Why didn't your hero do that? Why didn't your God do that, guys? Like, you can't answer that. And you notice that once this interview came out, Matt Ford ain't retweeting it as like a big win. Nobody's like super stoked about this interview. You don't hear UFO Jesus banging the drum on how wonderful it was. Because you know what? I think every believer and experiencer listened to this interview and said the exact same thing I just said. What the fuck? You remote view, but you can't meditate. You see orbs over 900 times and you didn't film them? Even while you were part of OSAP and ATIP? You didn't think that was relevant? I think they hear his analogies, the cigars, all the shit that they've heard so many times in the past. And that's the thing with that's where I'll knock Curt on this. But again, it's not really a knock because he's not a UFO guy. He's not researching everything in every interview that Elizondo has had. He's not a journalist like that. He usually has mathematicians and astronomists and physicists on his show, and theorists and philosophers, not bullshitters. So he's not used to doing the fucking, the gumshoe journalism to figure out, okay, is this guy making any fucking sense? And also, like, why would he, when he, as a content creator, your job is to get clicks and eyeballs. And that's his job. He's not a UFO channel. He's not a Matt Ford. He's not Corbell. He doesn't owe you shit when it comes to UFO interviews. But what I appreciate about the interviews that he's had is that he's starting to form opinions about the things that he's hearing and the lack of things he's seeing. And he knows something's not right. And I hope there's another interview with Elizondo down the road. If I had to take a guess, if I had to put my money on the UFO casino, whether or not Jaimungal gets another interview, I'm going to bet on no. And I hope I'm wrong on that. I really do. But I think the respectful pushbacks that we had, and we could Google how many times he pushed, or we could search how many times he respectfully pushes back. So let's see, this pushback, respectfully. Because it's always with that. So just to push back respectfully, right? There's the first time. So at what point, and this is a respectful question, respect, I mean, again, this is Curt, and I'll
the open. So at what point, and this is a respectful question, I mean this respectfully, at what point does the UAP playlist on this channel, the Theories of Everything channel, how can people distinguish that playlist from another playlist with the same videos but titled Cool Story Bro?
Great fucking question. Great fucking question. And the answer he gives, we don't have enough time. And this is why I include the link. Go listen to this. It's hard. Parts are hard. But Curt does ask good questions in it, and this is one of them. But again, he has to preface it with respectfully. Hey, I'm not trying to insult you. I don't want to get in trouble. I want you to come back. And those are the eggshells you have to walk on to guarantee yourself another visit to get to some real answers. So that's the second time he says it in the interview.
Well, first of all,
Let's see. Third time is here. He asked him about string theory.
Respectfully, Lou, you sound like a string theorist. So the string theorist would always say, well, look at the predictions of the singularity. When did that, or the black hole, when did that happen? Or the Higgs boson, or whatever it may be. And then decades later, it came to fruition. And then they'd point to some of what they think is progress in the past amount of years, and they'll show that there's some acceleration of that. Like they'll say, well, we had a gravitational anomaly in 1983 with supergravity, and we found a mechanism around that. Okay, but you still have 10 dimensions. Yeah, but you can compactify these dimensions. Okay, but you introduce scalars, massless scalars in 4 dimensions when you do that. Okay, well, we can introduce background fluxes. We figured that part out. And yeah, but then you still have a vast amount of ways to compactify. Okay, swampland. Okay, weak gravity conjectures, etc. So even in string theory, they could say and have said almost verbatim what you're saying.
Right.
And I mean
Which,
that respectfully,
so
sir.
and again, and he's saying, but string theory is bullshit, and you could string this out for as long as you want, and come up with as many excuses and possibilities and what ifs and scenarios, but the labs and the scientists, when they try to find these things, they're not there. The instruments aren't picking it up the way he's describing. There's always somebody somebody who's dug in their heels to the theory, saying, no, we can do this. And it hasn't gotten anywhere in a long time. And that doesn't mean it's not right. But at some point, you got to put some evidence on the fucking table. And ufology has been doing this for 9 decades almost. Since 1947. It's been a long time. 8 decades. A long time. And there's nothing tangible on the table. And he'll go into this soliloquy and these examples. Oh, what the Higgs boson? That was theorized in early 1900s, and it took us almost 100 years. And what did we have to create to find and figure out the Higgs boson? The difference being, though, is every time you tested the theory of the Higgs boson, you would get math and results that confirmed it, and to a point where technology caught up to the theory, and now you could test it. You can't do that with ufology. It's impossible to do. And that's the fucking difference here, guys. There is no difference between cool UFO video, trust me, bro, this is real, and what this guy is telling you. There's no difference whatsoever. Both can't be proven. Both are lacking evidence. And especially with this guy, it's just inconsistent.
No. No. And I take it respectfully, but I wouldn't consider myself a string theorist. I consider myself
He's not calling you a string theorist. He's calling you a guy that is just putting theories out there and excuses and reasons as to why your claims are valid.
Realist, meaning things take time, and to change the human psyche takes time. It does not occur fast. Very few things in nature really occur quickly. But I can understand your point. As for
So
string,
there's that. We don't have time to go over the whole answer. Again, link in the description. Go watch this whole thing for yourself. And you could search for these moments. Just type it respectfully in the show notes. Let's see. This is the 4th time he mentions it. Respectfully, he doesn't consider so we just listen to that one. Let's see.
respectfully, but I wouldn't consider myself a string theorist. I consider myself a realist, meaning things take time, and to change.
Let's check out. Respectfully. That's the last time it's said, which is here.
4 theories of everything, where people explicate toes. They disagree respectfully about theories and build.
So he's talking about his, I guess, Patreon. Anyway, so 5 times. Preface basically with being respectful. I'm not trying to insult you with this, but your theories sound wacky. They sound wacky. To me, that's the very next way is what Curt is saying. The theories aren't checking out, man. And everything's very apathetic behind the scenes. There's no excitement. There's no physicists coming out and talking about this. It's just, trust me, bros. Just guys that used to have security clearances. Anyway, we didn't even get to the security guard footage. That's okay. It don't matter. We'll get to it next week, you guys. We'll get to it next week. We had to talk about this, and this interview deserves a whole show. And like I said, check out the link in the description. Go listen to the whole interview. Go show Curt some love. Thank him for doing this interview. I think he did a great job, as good a job as he could do. And I think he asked some great questions. And honestly, it's the best interview of Lue Elizondo post book. And you can't argue that. You just can't. So for that, I'm thankful. You know, and I appreciate Curt. And so shout out to him, man. I hope he gets another interview. I hope he's not disappointed with this interview. I think he did a good job. If I have frustrations, none of it is meant for Curt. It's meant for the guy he's interviewing. He's the most frustrating of them all. And his stories and his inconsistencies and his trust me bros, it's just, I'm sick of it. I'm done with it. I want some fucking evidence. And I hope you're the same. I hope you're there too. I hope you're there with me. I feel like Curt's almost there. And I think, hopefully Curt, when he does sit down, if he sits down with him another time, he gets 4 or 5 hours. Because like Curt said in this interview, man, I could talk to you about just that one thing for 5 hours. So I think if there's anyone on the planet Earth that could interview Lue Elizondo, if it was long enough, really expose him and not do it, and do it in a very respectful manner, just like he did a few times in this interview. I mean, the idea that he doesn't meditate, but he's a great remote viewer, that don't jive, man. It don't jive at all. At all. You guys, that's the show. I hope you have a killer weekend. I want to say thank you to everyone in the chat. If you're still here, you haven't subscribed, please do. Subscribe to the show, ring the bell. That way you're notified every time we go live, which is Monday and Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific. I want to give out a special shout out to my buddy Dan Barry. He's been listening to these. He went deep dive and listened to almost all of the shows. And yeah, he doesn't like Lue Elizondo anymore either. And then this is just a total normie. But yeah, it's shout out to Dan. Love you, bro. Thanks for watching. Shout out to my members, Compliziert, Pinzer Lou, Who else is in here? Dana Shadell, my lady, thank you for being here. Renee Cruz being an amazing mod and hyping up the show as always. Let's see here. Wise Monkey, thank you for being here. Brad Barry, S Mass, Preston Paget, Steve Long, always so great to see that name in the chat. Bobby Broadway, Yoshi, Asynchronicity, all of you guys. Wise Monkey, Area 503. What's up, Manny? Good to see your face here, man. Archangel Reese, all of you guys, thanks for being here. Yeah, I think that's everything. Again, please don't forget to smack that like, share, subscribe button, ring the bell. That way you're notified. And consider supporting the show either through Patreon or through Super Chats like you saw earlier today. And once again, thank you for embarking on this journey of discovery together. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and thank you for helping us raise the bar here at Lue Reviews. You guys have a killer weekend. I'll see you. Peace out.